And we're live. Hello, everyone. Hello, thank you for joining us. Hello, this is Irene Lyakovetsky. I'm extremely privileged today because I'm hosting this event for FinOps, and today is fabulous day in Connecticut where I am. So please gather, please pay attention to what we're going to talk about. Our guest today is amazing Tim Cassell. Tim, how are you?
I'm good. Thank you. Thanks for having me. This is going to be kind of fun.
It's gonna be fun for sure because hey, we have fantastic audience out there on LinkedIn Live. We're streaming live. So if you like
Okay.
what you're doing, our audience, so please show us some emotions. Please show us some support or ask us questions or comments. We would love to hear what is of interest to you because we're gonna talk about FinOps and FinOps and cost optimization for organizations. And Tim is just the right guest to shed some light on the topic. Tim, why don't we start broad? FinOps today, all right, we hear a lot about cost optimization, how organizations have to control cloud spend. And yet,
hmm
with cloud adoption, so many mistakes still happening. So, how can we help organizations out there?
Yeah, I mean it's well. First of all, guys, I'm Tim. Welcome to my cave here that my wife sticks me in, so she doesn't hear me speaking on these calls. But yeah, it's I mean, at the end of the day, it's a fairly new kind of discipline. I think it's kind of been around. It's kind of been kind of rebranded a little bit. But cloud's complex, right? It's it's a different model than say back in my data center days at PayPal, where everything was like capex, things stood still, right? It wasn't like when you did capacity planning and stuff like that, you took time, boxes took a long time to get, right? So you typically over provision those things too. But with the cloud, right, it's anybody can spin up a resource, right? And be able, and kind of lose track of it, just like we lost track of servers in a data center, right? And those things, it's a gift that keeps on giving, right? So it just starts spinning up, and dollar signs start to go up, and then people want to start to control that and get their arms around it. So even though the cloud's been around for quite some time, it's still not the easiest thing to manage, right? And so that's what we're trying to do here at InOps is basically we're building some really cool tools that really follow the principles of FinOps, and I'm excited to have a chance to talk a little bit about that, and then look forward to rolling out these new features that's going to help these guys on their journey. So
Absolutely. Let's step back, maybe team first, okay? Because yes, pain is prevalent out there, all right? I know so many smaller, medium-sized companies that are overnight can occur such a horrible charges, So where an app steps in a way that ease of use of technology, or that engineers still on the mission, right? They doing their day job. Business analysts, financial analysts don't have to stop what they do for a living to start controlling those costs. So where do you think technology is helping there?
yeah, I mean, I'm a pretty simple. I'm a West Virginia kid, right? So at the end of the day, I try to keep it simple, right? And it's very simple, right? You can't solve what you can't see, right? And so where InOps coming into play, in on the informed side of the fence is getting visibility into your spend, not just like not how like say Amazon or GCP wants you to see it, accounts or services and all that kind of stuff. That though is important, you want to see it as based in your lens, right? And how your company wants to see the spend and be able to hold, find out where the responsible parties are that can make the changes to do that. And that's where InOps is coming into play. So starting right off the bat with the visibility, and being able to slice it into the way each of our individual companies want, right? So companies are kind of like snowflakes, right? Or fingerprints or individual people, right? I mean, I've worked with hundreds of customers reviewing and helping them on their journey. And it's amazing how no one is the same, right? And so, you really need to, focus on when we talk about this stuff is being able to put it within your lenses of your company and hope, and what makes sense to what you're doing. And FinOps is building a tool out there to allow you to do that and kind of walk the journey, right? It's not just an inform. We're basically got a new concept out there. Basically, we're giving the platform for free, all the reporting, the showbacks, the chargebacks, all that kind of stuff. We built on the well-architected framework. All that's free. You get all that free, right? And what we're focusing on is once you get those things into the right buckets, is really focusing on automation and optimization and providing you those savings, right? And then we share a little bit of that savings that we provide you, right? I think sometimes when we think cloud, I always have this conversation. I ask the simple question: what do you think is the most expensive thing in the cloud? And most people will answer, they'll go into a bunch of services. And I go, it's you. I go, it's people, guys. It's people. It's, if you ever look at a company's P&L, the number one cost is people resources. So what I'm a big fan of is, how do I free up that time to allow you to focus on innovation and what you actually do, right? What is your company's main goal? What are you guys trying to do? You should be focused on that and not AWS pricing plans, right? And that's where we're coming in to provide that service for you.
Fabulous, fabulous. You stepped into amazing domain team just now, okay? People and automation, okay? And kind of giving time back instead of replacing people with automation. So how FinOps plays in automation field, with machine learning, with better technologies today?
Yeah, I mean, we have a variety of different things that we can provide, and we're adding more and more, right? Because our focus, right, as I like to say, we're not going to make any money unless we save you money, right? So, we got the, what I call the traditional kind of stuff, right? So, sort of waste management automation, so I'm kind of cleaning up some of that stuff. We have an NRI automation system where we take all the risk and provide you the savings, right? We also are doing, the other thing I like to say is, people go into those commitments and, they think those things are great and they are good vehicles and put in the right ways, but, don't take away your number one lever of reducing costs. And that's, I'll have to clean up my language, gotta realize I'm live, but, you just turn that stuff off, right? Your ultimate goal is to match supply to, the holy grail of the cloud, right? Is matching supply demand at the lowest cost, right? That's the holy grail, right? So, and I learned this from my experiences at PayPal, right? So this is back in, was at PayPal in like 2000, I think it was 4 to 2010, right? And, we were growing like crazy, big data. I mean, it was just amazing data centers that we were building out there. And our ultimate goal, right, was, Christmas would come around and then we immediately for the next year focused on 1 hour out of the year, right? We need to ensure that we had enough capacity for 1 hour out of the year. And that was the third Monday from 12 to 1 before Christmas, right? And so we spent, had 9 times out of 10, we had to re-architect something, right? We had to provision a lot of, servers to match that capacity, right? And then, we hit it. And then, maybe drop down and then, get back from the years and you're focused completely on what that 1 hour today is, right? And so when I moved over to a startup called Workday, and I'm pretty sure everybody kind of knows that now, but at that time, right, I got introduced to AWS at that time, right? And we were spending maybe, I don't know, $5,000 maybe tops in Amazon a month. And it was just unleashed. It was unbelievable when I started to look at it. It was like the power of what we could be able to do and the speed of innovation that we could do, right? And so we really focused on matching supply to demand to the lowest cost, right? And leveraging all those different resources, all those different levers to do that. And that's the power of the cloud, right? And so when I look, and across my customer base, right, it still amazes me the number of folks that still basically run like a data center, right? 24/7, everything's up. And I like to say, guys, I hear you. I hear you. It's got to be up. But, even Google has a pattern, right? PayPal had a pattern. We could take the whole site down, right? Or half the site down during certain hours and do maintenance on it, right? So you have a pattern, and your goal is to match that pattern, right? That's the holy grail we're trying to do, right? And that can be difficult, right? I mean, you're both, you look at it and it's like, there's the ocean, right? What the hell? Sorry, what the heck am I going to do first, right? And that's where visibility comes into play, is really starting to take that sort of bigger picture and slice it into areas where we can now really have focused efforts by the people that are actually responsible for certain areas to be able to make those changes and be able to do that. So, I don't know, I'll ramble on forever. I'm not even sure what I was answering, but yeah, and so at FinOps, we're just trying to help, right, with that journey. I think, we're really building the tool, and really, it's building a tool to help with that journey, right? And so to kind of guide you through that and be able to leverage some of the learnings that we've seen over time, and get you there, right? So you can focus on what your company actually does.
Beautiful, beautiful. You mentioned people in the company, structures, and culture. All right. So when we're talking about new discipline, FinOps again, gaining the attention right now in the marketplace, but still,
Hmm.
company culture. Okay, you mentioned the transition to cloud. Okay, many still behind on this, really, right? And they still apply their data center practices to cloud culture. So when you're
Right.
talking to some of the conservative companies, okay, where do you find this right angle to say simply what FinOps adds to their business and to their
Yeah, I
bottom
mean,
line?
it's a journey, right? At the end of the day, is we have I have a really good customer that I speak with on a regular, right? And we look at it, and it's like you throw a bunch of RIs at it, right? You do everything that maybe like a traditional. You negotiate different pricing for different tiers, and you do commitments, right? But and you can only go so far, right? And we take a lot of that risk, so it still gives them the ability to take care of the other levers, right? But getting them to shut a box down, or to you know move into like Spot or something like that, it can seem overwhelming, right? And so, like I said, as we're breaking it into smaller pieces, and that you can experiment, and then be able to leverage it, at Workday, right? When Spot first came out, I mean, oh my gosh, I was running so just to kind of put some frame in it too, is at Workday when we got introduced to AWS, we weren't touching our customer production sites yet. The cloud was too new, and we were handling basically the most important data that companies have. And so we started to move it in from a test and dev in all of our pipelines. And that moment that Spot came out, and we tried to, we were going to experiment, and oh my gosh, the number of doubts, everybody had in that thing, right? It was, it just, you could easily shut down a conversation, right? But you take small pieces, right? And this thing doesn't have to be hard. Take something small, experiment, try it, right? And then you fast forward 6 months, and I'm controlling the spot market. We're running so much spot. I could drive prices. I could, back in the good old days of spot, you could drive the market, right? And we built an architecture. I could run anywhere in the world. I could run a workload anywhere in the world on spot, looking for the best price, and really working on not getting my legs cut off, as I like to say, right? And if I did, we were checking, we were running our test every time someone checked in. So long and short of it, we could pick it up the next time, right? And so we focused on that. And so we got huge, millions of dollars worth of savings, right? Just doing that in our dev and test. Then guess what? As we moved workloads into production, right? We got to a point that we were able to do it over there and not have interruptions. And so, to the point that a culture changed that you had to prove that you couldn't run in spot, right? And, and it got us away to really leveraging really the cost savings, right? So, I worked out, we started off, doing, reserved instances, and they, I'm a history guy, so I always like talking history about, the evolution of that thing, right? But yeah, I got a story where I'm in North Carolina. It's July 4th. We just rolled out some new pipelines, and our bill just shot up unbelievable, right? And I'm in a hotel. I got 2 kids, right? Midnight, and I'm putting together some plan to buy millions of dollars worth of reserved instances, right? And to kind of cover that. And and why it was so difficult is we innovated so fast, and at that time you had to actually hit the actual instance size, right? And I'm sweating bullets trying to get a VP to prove this, $2 million, purchase before I click go. It's the other thing I love about Amazon. It's like it's just a click of a button, I can spend a million, a
It's
couple
too
million
fast,
dollars,
right? Don't you
right?
find it too fast sometimes?
It's so
Okay,
it's so
without to.
fast. And so, you know, and I'm like I said, is I'm a fan of those, but it's got to be what we're trying to do with our company is provide that without the lock in, because what a lot of folks go out there and do is they lock them in, and and I'm trapped, right? I'm trying to help them, and I'm trapped because you got this commitment. So if I shut a box down, right, it still costs the same, right? Because I'm still paying those dollars for this commitment, right? So it really, really, handcuffs you, for innovation and being really out and get if that's your only sort of strategy, right? And so we try to help companies by taking, helping them get that savings, take the risk for them, and it still allows them to move and all that kind of stuff. So
We have great
this is
question
kind of
here.
cool. What is this
Yeah,
thing?
this is live comments we're getting. So thank you, Kieran A, for paying attention and for asking a very valuable question. What all should be the primary aspects when we plan to implement FinOps in an organization? Tim, you kind of started on that, right? What do we start with and how to start with? Yeah. Where do we
Yeah,
start? Yeah, where do we start? Yeah.
Yeah, I think you asked. I mean, this is a great question, right? Because you may already be on that journey as it's kind of running, right? And so it's really understanding. The first step is understanding what is it that you're trying to achieve, right, from a company perspective, right? And what sort of metrics are you trying to get, right? And so based off of that, right, if it's trying to drive costs to individuals, right, and getting that buy-in from both the teams and all that kind of stuff, and then you get your data organized, right? At the end of the day, I you know I'm an athlete, right? So I run marathons to do all this kind of stuff, right? And so at the end of the day, that's the hard work. The hard work is getting the data organized so you can actually see the change, be able to see where the problem is, be able to solve a problem, and be able to continue to report off of that and getting the data correct. So yeah, I mean, it's the first thing is to identifying, what are those key items that you want to be able to see your cost in, and it should tie to what your business does, right? There's a bunch of other things, right? Individual teams may use tags to do other things, but kind of focus on, and don't go crazy, guys. I mean, keep it simple, 3 to 5, right? 3 to 5 sort of ways to break it down. And as you learn and go through it, right, you can further define that within your team, but kind of focus on, visibility, understanding what metric you want to capture. And that would be what I would suggest as a starting point. And obviously,
Beautiful.
obviously get the free FinOps tool to help you with that. How was that for a
Beautiful.
plug?
That's perfect. You know what? The beauty of live streaming, People already answering to Kieran's question here in the chat, and this is wonderful because we're talking about NApps community when people helping each other. So we are here definitely to tease, to educate, and to send you off to talk to each other, to talk to NApps experts.
Yeah, and the other thing too, right, is as you're getting in here, don't try. There's a lot of folks trying to solve the same problems, right? And so, as I said, we're really starting to get heavily involved with the organization and get into the FinOps organization, right? There's a lot of people that have walked this, right? And have done it and can have you some different tricks and trades to kind of get you started, right? Um, but just kind of remember, every company is different, right? They always have a little different thing, but the same common thing is I want to be able to manage my cost or optimize my cost, right? And be able to, because long and short of it is it's about making money, right? Right. The less something costs, the more the bottom line increases, right? And so it's just kind of keep that business line. I think sometimes, when I get on these calls and they want to, they say I want to optimize, and I'm like, what's the number, right? What are you trying to you get down to? And sometimes, and surprising enough, a lot of people can't really answer that question. They just get the hey, we got to cut costs, right? Well, it's not necessarily always about cutting costs, right? It's about optimizing costs that, you know, like I said, I told you about my journey with Workday, right? We were at 5,000, we were spending millions a month, right? And I never got a question on a bill. You know why? Because we had metrics, right? We tied cost to a developer, right? And I was driving down the actual cost of the developer, even though my bill was going up higher, right? Because we had more developers. Because that what we measured, we knew a developer, right, was all about innovation, right? And you don't become Workday without huge innovation and being able to drive that. So that's what we did there.
That's another good dilemma, or rather, I would say, consideration for business, right? If everyone becomes CFO in the company, there is no innovation, okay? Love those CFOs to death, right? But you have to have freedom to experiment, to innovate. And without it, you just stale as a company. So where is this balance, you think, Tim?
Yeah, I mean it's no different than even in the old days, right? It's a certain amount of money associated. R&D is just happens to be another bucket than which you can manage. What I think is amazing about the cloud is the ability to go that much faster with innovation, right? Um, you'll hear if you ever hear me talk, my favorite thing to say is, especially with automation is, and what we're trying to do with FinOps is I want you innovating, man. I work with two companies that I think are the most amazing innovating companies in the world, in PayPal and Workday. And that culture of doing that is all about experimenting, failing, doing something, failing fast, right? And with technology within the cloud, right, there's always something new coming out, right? And sometimes it's very difficult to kind of keep up. But you'll hear me say very simple. Yes, when you make a commitment to like a long-term commitment to like all right, I'll go. You just invested in yesterday's tech, right? New tech is always cheaper, right? And when I say always cheaper if you don't take people in account from a people and from the actual cost, the numbers don't lie. And so you want to be able to constantly be able to take advantage of the new technology out there, right? And so
For sure, for sure. Good question here from Amvir. Amvir, thank you for watching and thank you for asking this question. Should we use app development tools on cloud or avoid to save cost? You kind of touched on this, Tim. Can we maybe spell out? Should we use
what do
app
you
development tools? Yeah.
not sure exactly what that means, but yeah, I mean, I think everything should be in the cloud. Here's the thing, man. When you provision a box in data centers like I used to do, you understand how awesome the cloud is, right? And everything should be out there running, right? If it's a matter of you know, reliability and all that kind of stuff, you can architect this stuff the same way as you can do in a data center, right? One of my favorite, yeah, I'm sorry, I like to tell stories. My favorite thing was you know, you know, at Workday we had our own data centers too, right? I told you about that, right? And long and short of it is, everybody will complain when Amazon's down, right? And oh yeah, and I just kind of sit back and laugh a little bit because I know what it's like to run one of the world's largest websites at PayPal, right? It's hard, right? And to think that we can do it better than some of these bigger players, I think is very naive. So I think that's
Yep,
next
yep,
question.
yep. Next question from Omvir again. Thank you, Omvir, for putting the comments in. I think this is an easy one, Tim, for you, don't you think?
That's in ops, guys. Come on. I mean, that's
Exactly,
simple.
exactly. What kind
I
of
mean,
question is that? Yeah.
I mean, it's FinOps on InOps, and that is where we're headed, right? And um, I'm excited. A little history on InOps, right? I mean, what makes us a little unique than other tools that are out there on the market today is, for one, is we're giving it away for free. And then number two is our foundation was built on the well-architected framework, right? So if you go out there in Amazon, you'll see that our platform was kind of built off of that, and it's leveraged because you need to take all that stuff into play. And so we're really focused on the lowest denominator, which is that resource, right? And so it provides us a great foundation to build out this, really going deep into the FinOps space. And so to me, it's a little different. We're not just ingesting a bunch of cost and usage reports, right? We're ingesting a lot of telemetry data to help us with these types of decisions and actually get costs in the right bucket, right? I think out there's this perception that tags solves all, and tags in the cost and usage report, right? It's just not a true statement, right? It's a start, but there's other things that you can leverage to get the data in the right buckets and report off of.
Yep, getting on some little bit more serious note here, Tim. What metrics are important from FinOps perspective? Ron and Jay is asking here.
It really depends on your company, right?
Hmm.
You know, it really depends on your company, right? I'm a big fan of tying, the metrics to your business, right? And they call them unit metrics, right? You know, if and it gives you that perspective of your business, right? So when you're looking at cost and you can't tie it to the business, it's a, so what are you trying to do then, right? So that's sort of where I go. Like at PayPal, everything was tied to a payment. Everything in that company, no matter what you did, is how many per payment, right? At Workday, it was a developer. What is it tied to a developer hour, right? We were, we knew that our developers and our engineers were key to that success, and we needed to make them as efficient as possible to drive revenue. So find out what that is, whatever that metric is, and be able to tie it to that. And then you put cost in context, right, to your company, right? And so if you're talking to a developer or a CFO or an executive management, and everybody's talking that sort of same language, right? We're not looking at sort of an overall number that has no meaning, right? If you don't have it in context. And so it just allows you to do that. And then you measure, you forecast, you budget, you find variances, you optimize, you operate, you automate, rinse and repeat, right? Based off of that and within your individual teams that you sliced it with.
Yeah, Tim, why don't we jump into some challenges? I'm sure you've seen some in client organizations. So what are the typical ones FinOps teams are, facing? Yeah.
Yeah, from my experience, right, I'm giving you my experience and what I see with the customers we manage, right, is, they may come in here, they'll start one of these programs, right, and there's a couple things that I've seen, right. They'll go off and do that, and they didn't talk to anybody, right, and and don't have any context really of what the engineering teams want, what they may know what the finance team wants, but maybe not really understanding the challenges that the engineers have, right? And so that's one. And so I'm a firm believer, right, is you've got to, to be successful at this, it's collaborative, right? You got to be able to speak, the uniqueness of this role is you got to speak business, you got to speak tech, right? And you got to have the credibility within those two different things to help make these changes, right? And having each of them understand why, right? And if you kind of do that, right, and understand those things, your chance of success is high. And then the number, but so doing that, and once you get that, that's great. But it's really the data. I'm a data person, and if you get data in the wrong bucket, right, you know, and it's charged to a different team, or it's not consistent, or it's not right, you, it's unbelievable how you'll lose credibility, right? We do a lot of, especially when we're doing billing, we're dealing with finance people, right? And those numbers go right, and some people are down to like pennies, right? And if you don't get that right, and have it allocated correctly, right, you have a chance to lose what you're trying to do, and that's a challenge. I call it, you're spending all your time, you know the most of our work is getting things in the right buckets and reporting based off of that, right? All that reporting, budgeting, forecasting, dashboards, all that, I call it the sexy stuff, right? All that's great, but if it's incorrect, it is not going to drive the change that you're looking for. So if you focus your time on getting the data correct and in the right buckets, you get a lot of success.
Good, good, good. Speaking of successes here, Tim, could you give us an example? Okay, we don't need to name client names, okay? But some of the implementations, when people do see results fast, they're able to communicate inside their own organization and kind of get more and more their team member and their leaders on board, that FinOps is a must-have capability inside the organization. So any good examples where people felt the beauty of it and really, really enjoyed the outcome?
Yeah, I mean, there's plenty of examples out there. This, like I said, is if you keep it simple initially, right? Kind of keep that concept of, crawl, walk, run, right? And just rinse and repeat that, right? You know, don't try to boil the ocean. And when people do it that way, and then they just continue to innovate, adjust it accordingly, I find more success out of that, right? And so, yeah. I mean, it's as I like to say, is we're not putting people on Mars, right? At the end of the day, we're looking at, like we're showing cost data and being able to report off of it and be at variances on that, and being able to identify changes and provide recommendations or automation to optimize this thing, right? And so, take it small, start simple, and build off your successes, right?
Yep, yep. And you definitely need to crawl first according to the framework, the FinOps framework, right? Crawl, walk and run, right? You cannot mature your
Yeah, I
business.
mean, it's no different than, I think we use these terms, and they're great, right? But it doesn't tie just to FinOps. It's sort of anything that we do let's don't jump and try to boil oceans right off the bat, right? Let's get in there. Let's get some keys. I told you the story of how we saved millions of dollars just leveraging Spot, right? It's a simple thing that we just did, and we learned from it, and we just expanded on it to the point it was, key to what we did. Those things can happen, right? But when you try to, and fail, just like anything, fail fast, right? If it doesn't work, throw it away, try something else, right? And don't spend too much time trying to build the entire sort of structure. And, next thing you know is, you got it wrong, right? And you got to tear a big thing down versus a very, very small thing. So
Great. You know what?
that's sort of my advice to folks out there.
Speaking of scaling your approach, right, to your own company, here is another question from Amvir. I'm loving this one. So what are the innovation in apps for startups Okay, working for rural economies. So where do you think, Tim? Yeah, startups can take advantage of an app's offering. Mhm.
I'm trying to understand that. So what are the innovators and ops for startups working for rural economy? Yeah, I mean this tool. So what's cool about NOps is it's for anyone, right? It's anywhere. You know, we have clients from the very smallest to several $1 million spends a month, right? And it's a tool that can be leveraged by all, right? And so we try, like I said, as with the moment you implement, we're already looking before you are even get things set up. We're already going to take care of some of these savings and help you get some quick wins. So yeah, it is. It's for everybody, right? And a lot of these levers, guys, are not obviously as you get bigger and bigger enterprises, right? There's you got more resources and different innovations and different ways that you can do things. But the same principles and techniques apply if I'm spending $10 or $10 million into the cloud, right? My only advice to smaller spends, right? And I have this conversation with a lot of startups, right? Is don't get control, but your ultimate goal is innovation. So I need you to try things, right? And so and your costs really, to be honest with you, right, is it doesn't even come close to people, right? And so they may go off and they want to do all these advanced techniques, and I look at it as like, we're chasing $100 with $10,000, right? That doesn't make sense, right? And so you know you definitely want to have some visibility and build it up starting first, but don't chase you know 10 a couple $1,000s worth of savings with a $20,000 a month resource, right? It just doesn't make sense, right? Your job is to do your best to get revenue, and don't and put in some frameworks to kind of help you have visibility. And then as that sort of becomes more of a number, then you start to take advantage of some of that stuff. So um, we have a lot of those conversations, and I think the key thing I'm trying to get across is you need to include people costs when you're talking about, it's not just the infrastructure, right? It's people that you need to include as a part of this equation too. So
Right. Speaking of people here, Tim, okay. So let's talk about decision making, because getting the recommendations, right? Getting the output from an apps platform, how does it empower engineers or business leaders? All right. What are the decisions that they're making that make their companies more effective, you think?
yeah, I mean, like I mentioned, is we're giving our platform for free. So for the visibility and reporting capabilities, right? That's going to help. But we're also underneath is providing automations for savings, right? So when you come into NOps and you turn it on, is you can actually get some significant results right off the bat. And we have we we kind of come out of how do I explain this, right? Is we have some different levers that work together, right? And so we'll come in and we'll look at your infrastructure and immediately turn on our sort of what we call our RI solution to because we have the commitment. We're still giving you get the savings of an RI, but we handle the commitment. And so what that allows you to do is you're going to get that savings on basically yesterday's tech, right? While you innovate, right? And as you switch, we'll be able to cover your new innovation. And then we tie in what I call our number one sort of cost savings, which is looking at your resources through our AI and really identifying opportunities where we can turn them off, right? It's like you know being able to turn them off, turn them on, based off of a dynamic schedule or a schedule to save you the money, right? So, that's like I said, is to me is the number one lever, right? And then we have a spot automation solution to for those things that were more dynamic, and you can leverage um, the spot, right? Kubernetes clusters, right? I mean, it's right off the bat, right? It's like if you're not running the spot and all that workload, then you kind of miss the concept of what those clusters really are. And we try to provide you those kind of things. So, and it's all automated, right? So we're trying to help you be able to focus on your business, and so providing these things that you get those savings is really what we're focused on. And like I said, what's unique about our company is everybody's in the company, from the person at the front desk to the CEO, is completely focused on how do we help our customers optimize their environment, right? And so when you have nothing but that focused, right, it's going to give us some, I think, I believe that we're going to have some really innovative ways to do things that will be game changers to me, right? Because I'm always thinking of different ways of how to do things, so we can, not just the traditional stuff, but some of these unique services of how we can help clients make sure they're running those optimal.
Why don't we dive into Showback, team, in a little more detail, data analysis and near real-time reporting mechanism, right? You touched on those a little bit, but I know there was a recent announcement on FinOps on Showback, so can you please tell us more what's new?
Yeah, I mean, so we're rolling out here shortly, right? Is like I said, ability to slice the data the way that you want to see it sliced within your company. And you kind of just take a step back on what a showback is, right? And so I usually, it's like it's being able to tie cost, every dollar, to something, right? Whatever that something might be. There's some traditional ones out there, right? Like teams or cost centers or, application or product, right? But whatever it is that you want to see that lens to, whatever that lens is that gets you to the people that can make the changes and can control that, right? And so we're rolling out that feature out there, and we've got some pretty cool ways of helping you with the allocation, right? So as I mentioned, that is where the work is, right? So companies change, all kinds of stuff, right? So we definitely leverage tags, but based off of what we do, we have the ability to leverage a lot of other types of data to help you get these things into the right buckets, right? And then once we have that allocation, and that'll keep up and maintain, right, the ability to review, view those data, forecast, budget off those. If you decide you'd like to do the chargebacks, we have a chargeback capabilities, dashboarding, right? So I kind of look at it as this is the place where the teams will be coming to gamify it, right, and all kinds of things. So
Beautiful.
yeah. No,
Yeah,
I mean, I'm excited about it because it's like, this is my thing, man. Like I said, I love data and I love seeing where it actually is. And so love that, once it's out, is any feedback and it changes. This is one of our huge advantages, I think, as we move to that. And we're also building our site based off that sort of framework. So it's very easy. So when people talk FinOps and they use a tool, it's going to translate, not even translate, basically into what the frameworks that you're using and how our different products help with that. So,
Tim, what is the difference between Showback and chargeback? Okay, I'm curious.
yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, so someone told me this analogy, and I think it's the greatest, right? But I talk about it like as my family, right? So I like, we go down to North Carolina every year, and there's about 10 families that go there, right? And they go in, we go to a restaurant, and they get this big table, right? And to me, I'm just like, can we just, can one person just pay, right? Just don't want, but Showbacks is basically, everybody's check, everybody gets individual checks down there, right? And so and they get to see their meal associated to it, but instead of paying, a central person pays. So I'll pay for everybody, but they'll see their individual checks, right? A chargeback is you get those individual checks, but you got to throw that credit card down everybody's throwing the credit card down, right?
Mhm.
And so they're paying for or getting those costs allocated to their P&L, all right, or to their business unit, right? And so it's just different levers, to be honest with you, right? You know, of it's the same data, but it's just how it's handled from a financial standpoint is really the biggest delta, right? So does it centralize paid, or is it, you're still seeing the data and driving the decisions, but a chargeback is you're actually moving dollars, uh, and even moving dollars either on the back end with the financial transaction, with a journal ledger entry or whatever, right? And it's really getting allocated. So has a tendency to drive a little bit more when you do that, because you got a manager or VP who's responsible for that P&L, and so it's now hitting his, and if you're managing your P&L, it puts a little bit more accountability. So that's the biggest difference. I mean, that's the key.
And what are the consequences, team, of not leveraging showback or chargeback? Companies who just, not leveraging that capability.
And I like to use, so when you don't, this is what your cloud cost looks like, right? It's just a bunch of cards, there's stuff dropping on the floor, right? And when you use Showback and have an accountability, is everything is nice and organized, right? And so you have, a deck of cards where you have, you know, all the diamonds are together, all the hearts are together, and it's just an easier way to take boiling in the ocean into accountable areas that can actually drive the change, right? It's just an easier way to manage, right? At the end of the day, you're just breaking down things into smaller chunks, so I can and who's responsible for those chunks to help drive optimization in those groups.
I love this analogy. I love this analogy because we can read a lot of articles on those resources, but before human being like yourself, team, explaining us, in very simple terms, like your restaurant analogy or just deck of card analogy. Wow, wow! I do hope our audience find this of value because I do. I simply,
Yeah, I
will
mean
keep it
it's
in
it's
mind. Yeah.
not. I always try to, like I said, I'm a simple person, right? So these are not. It can be overwhelming. That's what I'm trying to get to is it can feel overwhelming when you start this journey, right? And it's just like anything in life, right? If you can break it down into smaller chunks and to see success, you'll eventually get to that ocean, right? But when you're looking at it and you get your first bill and you're trying to make sense of that thing and who's doing what, and it can be, I mean, I've been doing it almost 13 years, right? And I can look at it and I can see the data and I can tell a lot more out of it than probably the average person. But the long and short of it is like you need it to be in that context that you understand, and then you can drive into what's really important, what you're responsible for, and be able to drive that change versus trying to do it overall. Now there are certain things that you want to, so I'll go on those a little bit. There are certain things that you want to centralize, manage, right, to take advantage of you know economies of scales like that, right? But those are just I look at those. That's the gravy. You'll get your most by getting all those costs into individual areas, right? And drive that. That'll give you your biggest change, biggest bang for your buck.
Got it, got it. Yeah, yeah. Speaking of people, though, okay, there is prevalent, job board out there for FinOps practitioners, okay, with people for people with certain certifications. How do you find this transition from engineering to become FinOps specialist in client organizations?
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's a great question. And I'm just going to base it off my experience. I'm an engineer, right? I mean, I wasn't hired to do FinOps, right?
Mhm.
At my different companies, right? And I was there to build teams, right? Build teams, innovate, right? Automate the crap out of everything, right? And so, um, really became, and as you move up, you get more into the budgeting side of the fence and that kind of stuff. But when we got into it, like I said, at Workday, right, we really kind of, picked up on it a little early because we were leveraging, tags to kind of drive certain automations associated to it. And it was just kind of a neat thing to see the cost associated to it. But then our finance people wanted to basically, tie those to cost centers, right? So, we used to tag everything by name, and I was able to do all that. I'm rambling, so I forgot what the question was.
Yeah, the question was
Well,
about how engineers become FinOps
oh yeah.
specialists.
So the
Yeah.
point is, is like, where I've seen a lot more success is, and this goes into understanding each of those groups, right? You don't have to already be an engineer to do this role, right? But it does make sense to really understand, and you don't have to be an expert at these features, but having an understanding of what they're going through and some of these features or these services that are in these clouds will go a long way of working with these teams, right? And then you also, I mean, it's a unique role, right? You also need to understand what the finance groups are wanting and being able to kind of compromise in between that, right? And that's where you're going to have your biggest success. But if you focus in one area and not the other, I've seen that fail, right? It's really a balance, right? The more you do that, the more credibility, the more influence you're going to have, right? Because we're all in this thing together, right? We just have a team that's trying to help kind of balance those acts. And so, yeah, get your certs and then all that. But my experience is, where we used to hire people out of high school at PayPal, right? It wasn't so much about what an education is or book smart, right? Is if you do some of these other things, right, you're going to get pretty far. But yeah, certs have a purpose.
Absolutely, absolutely. What you mentioned are soft skills, okay? Besides
Yeah,
technical skills. Yeah.
yeah. It's like anything, right? It's like, it's if you're able to bridge that gap, and influence people that aren't under you, right? That's basically what you're doing, right? Is being able to influence, and be able to collaborate with the different groups. And that's the challenge, right? The famous thing, getting engineers to do something, right? That's the challenge. But if you can get in and understand their motivations and their goals, right? It's not as hard as you think, and everybody really wants to really do the right thing, and eventually you'll get there, right?
And being, rational, analytical is good. How about some empathy for engineers, for those who,
Exactly.
yeah, because you
Right.
will be defining the way they work and the way you connect with them and the way they can perform their jobs, don't you think?
Yeah. And at the end of the day, it's make it easy for them, right?
Yeah, yeah.
If you got, go in, and if there's things that you can do or provide, then help them out, right? At the end of the day, is they got a lot of pressure, and getting product out, keeping sites up, guys. I mean, until you walk that life, right? And that's what I used to walk. It's a hard job. And so, and then having people come and say, I got to do X, Y, and Z. They're very, here's another thing I love about engineers. They're very good at arguing, and making a point, right? Uh, you know, and how valuable their time is, right? That's why I keep on saying it is important to consider that as part of your journey, right? Having your engineers focusing on tagging a bunch of stuff that you could easily get out of other data, right? And maybe you miss some things and they got to go back. I mean, it's probably not a wise use of your time. So if you have abilities to, like with our tool, to be able to get that data without relying so heavily on an engineer putting something on a box, and well, by the way, organizations change all the time, right? Business users reorg all the time, right? And then so if they're constantly changing that because you don't have a tool to help you with it, it's probably not a good use of their time. So that's what we're trying to help solve for the FinOps group here with FinOps too.
Yep, this seems to be
Yeah,
a great logical point, Tim, to encourage everyone to get started. We have the nice link here on the ticker, so it's very simple. napps.io, get started. All right, book a demo today, and knowledgeable people like Tim and his team is gonna help you, on your
Yeah.
journey. Yeah.
And if anybody, yeah, and everybody can reach out to me. I love to, get the feedback as we roll out. And what I love about our team is our ability to go just freaking fast, guys. I mean, so if there's things that are missing, and it's an important that we can really get things out fast. I mean, we're heads down making this the tool of choice. Like I said, you can't say what is it. I'm corny sometimes, right? You can't say FinOps without NOps.
True. It's true. We're here with NApps talking about FinOps. It's so easy to remember. What is the best
So
cloud tool for
easy.
FinOps, team? I think you know the answer.
That would be NOps.
True. And I'm Irene here. I attest to that. Tim, thank you so much. This is a lot of fun. I'm sure
Hey,
audience
thanks. Hey,
found
thanks
this
for
of
thanks
value.
for having me, guys. I mean, so here's the thing: is like if you guys, most of you guys probably are in FinOps. It's the third Monday of the month, and it's like, thank you for your time. I know I'm getting crushed right now, getting books closed, getting things organized. I really appreciate you guys spending time with me today. And like I said, reach out to me. I'd love to hear from you guys, and we're always looking for feedback. So thanks everyone for your time, and good
Before you
luck on
go,
the close.
Tim, before you go, why don't we leave audience with few takeaways, okay? One more summarizing thought, okay? We talked a lot about,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah. Key points to me in this space, right, is like I said, is know your company, know the people, work collaboratively with those guys, right? um, you know, Realize FinOps is a journey, right? It's like, at the end of the day, is like you're not going to be able to solve it right off the bat, all the different problems, right? Take small steps, get quick wins, build upon those things, right? And then the last thing, keep it simple. I'm a simple works, right? Simple will work, and it will get you wins, and just iterate as you get better. And the last is, I'm very passionate about this stuff, so have fun with it, right? There is nothing like when when I work with a client and I see something go up and it goes down. I think it's the greatest thing in the world, right? And so uh, meeting goals and exceeding things like that are just, it's just a lot of fun, and you're going to build sort of this sort of team spirit and stuff like that. So that would be my takeaway.
Thank you, Tim. Thank you so very much. Thank you for the audience for tuning in. For those who will be watching this in recording, please reach out to Tim. Follow NApps on LinkedIn. Lots of resources out there. And of course, book a demo today. Thank you, everyone. Thank you.
Thanks, Ari.